Hello, listener. Welcome to the Ampersand Manifesto podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Wan. Today's episode is a bonus episode to tide you over as we work on season 2. You'll see that it doesn't follow our usual interview format. We're going to be taking a step back and actually looking at the Ampersand character. Over the past few months, I received the same message from several people. They said, "Hey, I saw this article and I immediately thought of you and ampersands." Note to self, when you get the exact same recommendation multiple times, it probably means it's worth checking out. And it was. This article that they sent me is written by none other than Merriam-Webster, the actual makers of the dictionary. As I read through the article, I couldn't help but think that this story would be really fun to hear in audio format. So here's my retelling of the Merriam-Webster article entitled, "The History of Ampersand: How the Ampersand Got Its Name." Did you know the English alphabet didn't always go from A to Z? If you'd been learning your ABCs in the 19th century, it's very likely that your alphabet would have had a 27th member, ampersand. So the first known historical record of the ampersand symbol visually happened sometime very long time ago in the most famously ruined of ancient ruined cities, Pompeii. And it was actually on some wall graffiti. So we don't know the exact date of its appearance, but the 79 AD eruption of Mount Vesuvius kind of puts a hard upper limit on the possible range of dates. And this is all from a book by Keith Houston. He wrote this book called Shady Characters: The Secret Life of Punctuation, Symbols, and Other Typographical Marks. So graffiti artists really were ahead of their time and put that ampersand on a wall somewhere. And note that that very first ampersand was what we call a ligature. So it's a character consisting of 2 or more letters joined together. So this hip graffiti artist was joining the letters E and T of the Latin word et, which means and. So you get this visual example of kind of the first ampersand on a wall in Pompeii all the way back then. Fast forward many centuries, and the first known example of the actual word ampersand in English is from the late 18th century. And this word's origin actually lies in a linguistic tradition that dates to several centuries earlier. Starting in the late Middle Ages, single letters that also functioned as words, so for example, I or A, so they're both letters, but they're also words. If you were referring to them as letters, you would actually say per se, to clarify that you were talking about the letter and not the word. So, for example, the letter I would be referred to with the phrase I per se I. In Latin, this means I by itself is the word I. So, kind of a little confusing way to make something less confusing. And remember, we were talking about that 27th quasi letter and. So what happened was the same tradition was applied to and. And when that was done, it was and per se and. Meaning and by itself is the word and. So that read as and per se and over time you could see what happens, right? You say it really fast and you get ampersand. And that is the evolution of the word that got all smushed together and became this kind of unique word that we now use today to refer to the character. So now you know what you can drop at that next dinner party, the evolution of the ampersand, that first graffiti all the way back sometime after 79 AD in Pompeii. And for more, you can read the article for yourself. There's a link to it in the show notes. And I highly recommend reading articles by Merriam-Webster. They own special words and linguistic traditions and a lot of fun information. If you enjoyed Season 1 of the Ampersand Manifesto and haven't left a review yet, please help us out. Written reviews are currently only available on the Apple Podcasts app, so if you have an iPhone or a Mac, this is the best way to support the show. We really appreciate it, and it really only takes 5 minutes. As you are wrapping up 2022, what reflections are coming to mind? What goals do you have going into 2023? If you are a verbal processor, chances are that you'd benefit from having a sounding board. As a coach, I love doing this work. I love helping leaders like you clarify what's important and to create plans to take action. Let's chat. You can find me at jessicawan.com. Happy holidays, stay well, and keep embracing your ampersand.